thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being here, as is customary for me. I also want to extend my thanks to the Mahmoud Foundation for informing me about and opening doors for me to have this conversation with you. And I want to thank everyone who took part in seeing to it that this took place, the masjid for opening its doors. Brother Muhammad mentioned something earlier about adversities. And I'm scheduled to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that I had to go through. And we all have them. No matter where we are in our life, from the smallest to the biggest, we have adversity. And this is something that we all know. But before getting into a little bit about, I guess, some of those challenges that I had to face growing up in my pursuit of trying to become an NBA basketball player, I just like to mention something real brief about adversities, because there's a plethora of information out there, articles and books, and from what I hear, it's like $1 billion industry, just in terms of motivating people. And there's a reason for it, because I think we live in a society where there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, because I think oftentimes we don't understand the significance of going through challenges. We look at it as a bad thing. We look at it as, well, why me? Not necessarily people here. We should know better. But it's one of those subjects, it's one of those areas that I think when we know its significance, when we understand its value, we're going to be better off. I was in Dallas a while back, and I remember talking to this guy who was an ex-prime minister of a country, and he said something interesting. He said geniuses were created or educated in times of crisis. And there's this comedian who defined adversities in an interesting way. He said that it's a painful university for human evolution. Because to go through challenges is painful. To have setbacks is difficult. To have hardships is tough. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's fair. Even our great leaders have had to go. The Prophet ﷺ had to struggle more than anyone in the history of human beings. And when I think about these struggles, and as a little boy growing up in the South, when you're young, you don't always, again, you question a lot, and sometimes you question in the wrong way, the why me thing. Why do I have to go through this? Why I have to experience these things? And I was fortunate at a young age, growing up in the South, to know what it was that I wanted to do with myself. I didn't know all the details of how to go about it in terms of, okay, A, B, C, D, this is exactly what I have to do. But I knew one thing, that if I wanted to be great at something, and I've come to understand from my perspective that anything you want to be great at in life, anything you want to succeed at in life, you have to learn how to fail first. You have to go through, the hard times to get there. And because it's like taking a piece of iron. You know what they say about metal? In order to turn that metal into some beautiful tool or beautiful architecture, you have to put it through heat. You have to put it through pounding. And it becomes stronger as a result of that. Well, the same thing with the human being. So when I was coming up, I was blessed by Allah to have that I didn't have it fully, but I had it enough to push me forward. And I was blessed to know what I wanted to do with myself. I had a vision at a young age. And I'm talking about 9 years old. And I could have easily, like so many people, I could have easily taken, because I grew up in an aesthetically unappealing place, in the ghettos of Mississippi. I grew up with a mother who had an 8th grade education, who wanted the best for us, but it's hard for your parents to give you something that they don't have. Even though she wanted us to be educated, it's hard for her to give us what she don't have. So growing up poor, growing up also with a neurological disorder that wasn't diagnosed until I was in 11th grade, so you're constantly being ridiculed. I could have used all of those things as an excuse to say, well, you know what, This is where I'm from. This is what I'm faced with. I'm just going to, this is my fate. I'm just going to accept it. But at a young age, I realized if I had to be the author of my own stories. I didn't want to believe in the stories that people were telling me about myself. So if I'm going to change, if I'm going to have a chance at something, then I have to start rewriting my story. And how am I going to do that? So Allah blessed me first with a vision. I knew at a young age that I wanted to be the best basketball player that I can be. Because I didn't have the confidence at that age in my schoolwork. Because we didn't have a home where education was the foundation. Again, my mother had an 8th grade education. And so even though she wanted us to have that, we didn't sit around the house discussing issues, trying to develop critical thinking, trying to come up with solutions. So for me, going through school, it was difficult. And on top of that, you have a neurological disorder, which restricts you. Because everything I do with Tourette's syndrome, it's like being a perfectionist. If I touch this, it doesn't feel right. I got to touch it again. And I can't continue until my mind and my body's on the same page. So you got this 9-year-old child in school, and he's trying to listen to the teacher, but he can't because he's too busy trying to stay still so that he won't be ridiculed by the other students. And so because of that, I suffered in school. And a lot of people didn't catch it. Even in 7th grade, they had diagnosed me as slow learning. They put me in a special class that I didn't think I deserved because I was misunderstood, misdiagnosed. And all of those things could have kept me back. But I was blessed, again, I keep stressing this point, by Allah, because sometimes, not just young people don't know what they want to do with themselves, but sometimes you have an older generation, they'll go through 4 years of school. And in those 4 years, or 5 years, they'll get their degree in college. And then they'll realize, man, this is not what I want to do with myself. So it's a blessing to know at that age. And it's only by the grace and mercy of Allah that I just woke up one day and I said, I'm just going to start going to play. I don't know where this is going to end up, but I'm going to put everything I got into this. And as a 9-year-old, it's frightening and it's scary because you're saying to yourself, I didn't know that statistically I had a better chance of becoming a doctor or a lawyer than becoming an NBA basketball player. It was harder to be an NBA basketball player, statistically, than being a doctor or lawyer. But that's all I felt I could do because I didn't have those other examples. I didn't have that in my community. So when I look on the television and I see these athletes and I see myself, being a young man having some type of athleticism, I said, well, hey, I might have a chance at this. So I put all my marbles in that one basket. So I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, every single morning. And it would still be dark outside. And it didn't matter to me, and I'm not exaggerating to you, it didn't matter to me if it was raining, thundering, and lightning. It didn't matter if it was 100 degrees. It didn't matter if it was freezing. And I didn't have the big jackets, the warm-up suits. When it was freezing, I had shorts on and I had a t-shirt on. And there were times I would go on that court and it's cold. I'm dribbling to the basketball court and I'm shivering. But your body warms up after a while. And you start playing. But after it's over, you're sweating. And that sweat gets cold. And you're walking home and you're shivering. And you get home and I didn't know then that I had frostbitten hands, 9 years old. There were times I thought I was going to die on the basketball court because I put so much into it. I felt that if I don't make it in basketball, my life is over. And that's sad. But yet it's a blessing because I didn't leave myself with a B or C option. A was the only option I had, and I had to give it everything I had to make it. And so every day I woke up, I had this vision that I wanted to be the best I had to make it if I was going to be able to take care of my family, my mother, my brother, if I was going to be able to be to assist me in being in a position someday to be able to take care of others, because this was one of the goals. So every day, and there were times I would come home and my hands, and I'm dramatizing it for you so you can visualize. And I'm coming home and I'm shaking and I'm trying to turn on the faucet, and I'm turning on the faucet, and I didn't know then you're not supposed to put hot water on cold hands when they're freezing like that. And my hands feel like needles when that hot water hit was going through them. And I would thaw out just enough. Sit at home for a minute. I would, as they call, meditate. I would pray. I would close my curtains. I would think about what I wanted. And I did that a lot as a child. I didn't know why I was doing it. But when I look back, I said it was only Allah that instilled that in me at that early age. They call it mental imagery and meditation and all of that stuff now. I was praying. As we say, dhikr, I was remembering Allah. I was doing all of that. And as I thought myself out, I'm back on the court again. Sometimes with only syrup sandwiches, sugar water as my meal. You know, because we didn't have a lot to eat. And there were times working on that court where literally I thought I was going to die in the heat because I wanted it that bad. It was like there's no other way out for me. It could be, I could be putting on my shoes and I could literally hear the thunder. I mean loud, rain coming down heavy. And I'm putting on my shoes literally. You'd think the sun was shining. I'm oblivious. The weather didn't matter to me anymore. It's like, man, I gotta make it. In my mind, like, nobody's training like this. Who's gonna be out here doing this? And I always tried to put myself in a position to where I challenged myself with my environment. I would put heavy clothes on when I got older, like junior high and high school, wool suits and combat boots, and I'm running in the middle of the sand. It's 100 degrees outside, and the heat is just taking my breath. And I'm about to faint, but I don't want to stop, because if I stop, if I slow down, that's a weakness. And I can't have that weakness. And so this is something that I continue to do day in and day out. And what's amazing about this is that all of those challenges, even in that area, and mind you, I have Tourette syndrome. I don't know what it is that I have. Before I even leave the house, it may take me an hour just to get out the house. Because why? I may put my socks on that don't feel right, I take them off. Put them on, I take them off. Because everything had to feel perfect. Because my mind is sending mixed messages to my muscles. And so it might take me an hour just to get out of the house. There's an old commercial that used to come on years ago. A lot of the old may remember about the Marines. We do more at 4 a.m. in the morning than you do all day. That was me. Before I left the house, I was already half exhausted, just trying to put on my clothes, open the door, shut the door just to get out. But I realized something, that the more I began to train, the more I began to push myself by Allah, Allah began to open doors. People used to tell me, oh, you'll never make it. You're undersized, you're too short. Not too many people has ever made it out of Gulfport, Mississippi, or Mississippi, period, at that time. And I used that, though, as fuel to drive me. Every time I would hear that. And the more I began to train, I always used to seek out older people, because I felt that older people, stronger people, was going to push me more. They were going to make me better. And the more I did that, Allah began to open doors for me, to the point where I was in elementary school. And we had a game where it was like 43 to 46. And I had 42 of our 43 points. One game was like 36. We lost. One game was 36 to 42. I had all 36. So word began to circle, like, who is this little boy? And it just kept on pushing me to where I ended up going to junior high. And I'm going to run through this real quick. I'm trying to make a point. I'm going through junior high school. And I started all 3 years for junior high school as a 7th grader. I go to high school. Before I touched the high school basketball floor, they listed me as the top player all-state in high school. We go to a camp in New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey. I've been doing this all of these years, waking up early, putting my body through abuse day in and day out. Days I didn't even want to go on the basketball court because I was tired. I was exhausted, and I knew with Tourette syndrome is like another opponent for me. It's like Mahmoud, he goes out, he practices for an hour and a half. When the practice is over, you think it's time to go. You're exhausted, you're working hard, you can't hardly breathe. Tourette's pulls you out. Where you going? You're not going anywhere. My turn now. You got to do what I want you to do. Now, you got a kid that's 9 years old, 10 years, exhausted. But here it is now. Tourette's is saying you have to, in this workout, while you're tired, 10 shots, all of them have to go all net. They can't hit no part of the rim. You could be on number 9. You could make number 10. But number 10 hits the rim, you gotta go back to 0. No, you can't take the shot over. It's gotta be 10 in a row, full speed, exhausted, straight net. That may take me another hour and a half just to finish 10 shots. So I'm doing this day in and day out. It all leads up to this point, and I'm doing the same moves every day. My mind is the greatest tool that I have, because as psychology says, so as you think, and so shall it be, right? And I would just imagine things, and I used to imagine this invisible player. Wherever I went, he was this close to the ball. When I shot it, when I dribbled it, and I was working on my quickness, because in my elementary thinking, I'm saying, well, if I can beat my imagination, if I can escape my imagination, no human being can stay with me like my imagination can, right? And this is what began to help my quick release, my speed. And I was just pushing myself. I just wanted to be the best. I wanted to be able to take care of my family. And one day I was invited to go to this camp, Princeton, New Jersey. That particular year, Michael Jordan happened to be there. And this is like a dream come true. I didn't know that this was going to happen. He's talking to a group of us like I'm talking to you, but we're in the stands. And out of all the people in there, he looks at me. He says, "Come on out, young fella." And I came out to the top of the key. And I remember like yesterday, I'm at the left-hand corner of the top of the key. And Jordan is standing right there and hands me the ball. He says, "I want you to come, I want you to attack me and try to score me best you can with everything you've got." It's okay. And I remember getting the ball, and I gave him a quick jab, and I took off left. And when I took off left, I took off with everything I had. And I could hear him that quick, rushing, and he was coming at me full speed, and I could see him as I was going up for the shot. He's 6'5", 6'6". If I went straight up, he would have had it. So I extended my arm out, running through the layup, and I could see his hand. I took something off of it, and I scored on it. Went through the net, came back down. I'm getting ready to go. He said, "Come on back, let's do that again." So I'm okay. And I was excited, because you're talking about a 10th grader going to the 11th grade, playing against one of the best that ever played it. You're talking about a little boy that came from Gulfport, Mississippi, with and I'm not, in any way am I trying to say that I have a monopoly on suffering, that I've gone through the worst that anybody has gone through. I'm not naive. I know everybody has their struggle. Some people have gone through way worse than I have. But I think everybody has a story, and every story has its significance, and it inspires in its own way. And he called me back. I got the ball, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm excited. The crowd was going crazy. But I didn't let it show, because you play the game long enough, you know, when you score on somebody, even though you think you did something great, you got to come out of it like you do it all the time. You know, you got to act like it's normal. So when I walked off, I'm walking off like, you know, not cocky, but this is what I do all the time. I get it again, and I'm thinking to myself, no, I can't do the same thing, because he's going to expect that. But I want to make him think I'm going the same way. So I got the ball, and immediately I went through my legs. And I've been taught to sell the play. Whatever you do, put everything into it. So I'm going, my body language, my eyes, but I'm watching him. And it happened so quick. I went through my legs, I crossed him over, I laid him up on the other side. 2 times in a row. He came out the net, gave him the ball. He politely asked me to go sit down. And after I sat down, I just remember sitting there, and I'm saying to myself, man, I was excited. I said, I just scored on Michael Jordan twice, and it was easy. And I said, man, wait till I get home and tell my boys about this. They ain't gonna believe it. But what it did for me was, a lot of kids, when stuff like that happen, and I see it all the time through my training, you score on a Michael Jordan, they think they made it to the NBA. I don't have to work out no more. I done did it. I'm here now. And that's when they start going downhill. For me, I was still hungry. Actually, that made me hungry, because I wanted that feeling all the time. said, man, I want, whatever I'm doing, all of this training that I've been doing up to this point, I'm doing something right. I gotta stick to it. Matter of fact, I gotta pick it up. I gotta even do more. To Allah bless me to go to LSU. Now I'm talking about adversities, I'm talking about consistency, I'm talking about work ethic, I'm talking about sacrifice, I'm talking about all of these things in this story. I end up going to LSU. I'm 5'11 and a half, maybe 6 feet with shoes on. Come out of a small area. I'm going to be playing against 6'5", 6'4", 6 whatever guards. It's just as quick, stronger, taller. I remember the journalist asking me, he said, what do you want your career to say for itself here at LSU when it's all said and done? I said, and I was being realistic. Even though deep down I wanted more, but I was being humble with my response. I said, well, if I can average 13 points and 7 assists for my career, I think that'll be a great career at LSU. Because I'm saying, you know, I'm small, coming from a small town. Talent is going to be off the chain. I mean, some of the best players. When you get to college, everybody on that team was the man of their high school team. It's not like high school. Everybody in college was the man on their team. So you know the competition is going to be much more. My first game, I had 13 and 7. 13, 12.7, basically what I said. It's okay. Second game, I had 21 points. I'm a freshman. When I hit the 21, I noticed something, but I didn't want to say anything because I was a little superstitious. I said, because I don't want to disturb the moment. But I noticed that, man, it seems like high school all over again. Dale Brown stops me. We lost that game. Dale Brown stops me at the locker room door. He says, well, at the time I was Chris. He said, we want you to score more. We need you to score more. And I remember looking at him humbly, and I said, Coach, I'll try. My third game as a freshman, I had 48 against Louisiana Tech. I think my fourth game, I had 36. My fifth game, national televised game against Florida. They had an array of players that were All-Americans on their team from Shinches on down. And we were playing them in their gym in Florida. When the game was over, it was a national televised game. I ended up with 53 points. I get into the locker, I didn't know I had 53. I get into the locker room, my assistant coach shaking me, you just scored 53, shaking me, they want to talk to you out there, get up, go now. And I said, what did I score? I'm nervous. I'm like, I mean, it hit me. I didn't know I had 53 points. I'm in Florida, national televised game, packed house. I go out. As soon as I walk out into the arena, literally, as soon as my feet and they can see my body, they just lost. We beat them. They give me a standing ovation. It's unreal. I go and talk to the journalists. It's a room with way more people than here. It's flooded. And I'm getting all of these questions. The only thing I can think about now is, man, something's going to happen to me. This is happening too fast. The plane going to crash. The bus going to crash. I'm going to die because this don't happen to people like me coming from where I'm coming from. And I remember getting on the bus that day, and I looked out the window, and we were on our way, and the weather was bad. And I'm looking out the window, I'm crying like a baby. Because I'm like, I know something about to happen to me. I said, man, we get on the plane. Planes usually, when they hit the turbulence, they're like this. This plane was doing this, and I'm not exaggerating. It was, and lightning, and you had people on the plane. Yay! I said, man, shut up! This ain't fun. Because they were playing. I don't play with stuff like that. And I said, man, be quiet, man. This is, you know. And I was so nervous when I got back to LSU. I was this close in telling Dale Brown, I said, look, man, I love to play, but I was going to ask him, can I just play home games? Because I didn't want to fly no more. But something in me said, you know, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. What I noticed was this, that just like I mentioned earlier about the metal and going through heat and the pounding, and how going through those things not only makes it so that you can form and shape that metal into something beautiful, but also it becomes stronger and becomes more stable and more consistent. Well, that's the same thing that I noticed through my struggles growing up, trying to reach that point of being great at what I did in basketball, that when I look back, I said, wow, even when I got to the NBA, the same thing that through the legs, crossover shot, through the legs, fake, they jump for a shot, step, all of that stuff I was doing in the NBA, all that stuff I was doing in college. By Allah's grace and mercy, from elementary to junior high to high school, I had not changed a thing. I was doing this. If you pull up some tape of me in elementary and junior high, you'll see, he was doing it. I worked on it day in and day out. The same thing. Just like we got 5 daily prayers. We got all the things we do every year, Ramadan. Every day that I did that and I focused on details, I believed, I had a vision. And for me, it wasn't just about me. And that's another thing I want to say. It has to be bigger than you as an individual. The reason, most of the reason, 90-some% of the reason that I strove so hard had less to do with me, Mahmoud, wanting a car, wanting a house. It had more to do with somebody other than me. There's an old movie called Roots, right, about slavery. And there's a scene when Kunta Kinte goes out with his daughter and he raises her up to the sky. He says, behold something greater than yourself. Right? When you do something greater than yourself, there's more of a possibility of getting what you want. You pushed more because if it's just for you, there's nobody that you're accountable to. Right? Most of everything I did, what helped me continue to push was because I would think about my mother. I would think about my brothers, not letting them down. I would think about being in a position to help people someday. This is what woke me up every day. It wasn't necessarily me. It was those things. And it reminds me of the story that I like to share with people a lot when you do things for something bigger than yourself. You know, when you're a part of a collective spirit, so to speak, and they call the story Ubuntu. I don't know if any of you have heard the story, but there was an anthropologist who created a game among African children, and he put fruit in a basket, and he put it at a distance, and he said, whoever can reach that fruit, right, can have it all to themselves. And so they all grabbed hands, and they ran together, so when they got to the fruit, they all ate as one. And he was surprised. He said, well, because he thought that the inclination for selfishness and greed was going to kick in. He said, well, why did you do that? They said, Ubuntu. How can one be happy when the rest are sad? They said, this is a philosophy among tribes, that I am because we are. And so this was something for me that continued to just resonate and continue to push me. And it got to the point where, you know, I grew up in a Christian background. I don't know how much time I have, because I can run my mouth for a minute. Okay. I grew up in a Christian background. I was always taught the value of prayer and things of this nature, and about caring for other people. And by the grace, I'm gonna skip a little bit. By the grace and mercy of Allah, I'd always had questions growing up about the faith that I was following, about the nature of Jesus, all of those things, the nature of God. And I was blessed when I was at LSU, right before going to the NBA. My coach gave me the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I began to read his life. And up until that point, I had not even known who Malcolm was, which showed the extent or lack of the education that I was receiving. I didn't know who Malcolm was. And I began to read his book, and I became fascinated with it. And just how he thought, you know, how he operated. And when I was in the NBA, I met a priest because I was still professing to be a Christian. I put crosses in my socks. Crosses in my socks. Crosses in my shorts when I was at LSU. I would do all of those things. And he had a protege named James, Mark James, and we became very close. And one day at my house in Denver, Mark and I began to talk. And Islam came up in conversation. And I had been thinking about it after reading Malcolm's book. And I remember saying to him, I said, "You're interested in Islam?" He said, "Yeah, you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, man, I met this Muslim brother named Abdullah at the airport. He said we can go to the masjid and pick up the Quran." It's okay. I said, "Well, let's go." So got into the car, rushed down to the masjid, and there was a brother tending to the garden. And I remember like yesterday, it was very polite. We went up and said, "Brother, we were told that we can come to the masjid and pick up the Quran. We're very much interested in wanting to know what Islam is about." Because I felt something was terribly missing in my life, and rushed home. And I remember opening up the Quran, and 2 to 3 pages later, I don't remember to this day what it was that I read, but whatever it was that I read, it's like answered at that time. All the doubts and questions that I had were gone. And I remember looking across the table at the brother, and I said, "I don't know about you, but I'm going to be a Muslim. That's it for me." And from there, I began to go to the masjid, and I began to talk to this other brother, day in and day out. And everything he explained to me just made total sense. And that summer after my first year in the league, I ended up embracing Islam. Now that's when things hit the fan. Because after embracing Islam, I grew up in the South. And growing up in the South, when I came up, I used to walk on the beach and see the Ku Klux Klan marching with their hoods on. I used to see the relationship between blacks and whites and how blacks would be very submissive, head lower when they had to confront whites. But yet, behind their back, they would curse them out, run off at the mouth, and I saw myself developing those traits. And I'm like, I don't like this. This ain't natural. You should be able to say what you want to whoever it is and be comfortable with that. But I saw myself being that way, and I saw myself when I had to confront somebody that I would feel nervous. Why am I feeling nervous? I don't like this feeling. But the more I began to read and study, read the Quran, and by reading the Quran, you begin to read everything now. You want to read everything you can get your hands on. So I began to do that to the point where I started developing a major conscience, a serious conscience. And I no longer I had to break those chains of not being able to say what I felt, say what I believed. And it started with my agent, because he was representing me. And I had to call a meeting with him. That was the first stage for me. I had to go in and I told him, I said, "Look," because he would talk about his son in meetings more than me. He would call me son, and I didn't like all of that. And I started looking at the world differently. And I remember going into his office and I said, "Look, I called this meeting because, for one," and I was raw. I said, "You work for me, I don't work for you." I said, "Furthermore, when we're in these meetings," I said, "you talk about your son more than me." I said, "That has to stop." I said, "I'm not your son, so don't refer to me as your son anymore. My name is Mahmoud. It's on a first name basis with you and me." He said, "Well, Chris," and I looked at him, he said, "Mahmoud," and we started talking. I felt liberated. I felt, okay, I'm on my way. I'm on this way of getting to this point. Bernie Bickerstaff, the general manager, prior to that, he said, "Well, we're a team, we keep everything in the house." I'm in the office and I hear he said, "Mahmoud needs to stop BSing and play ball." I'm on a roll now. I call Bernie, "Hey Bernie, how you doing?" "Hey Mahmoud, what's going on?" "Look, man, I just read a statement that they say you made in the paper." "Well, who you think you?" And he just started going off on me. He's the general manager of the team. Now I'm on a roll now. I got to break these chains. I got to begin to say what I feel, regardless. So I ended up telling myself, "Look, man, I don't care who you are, what your position is. If you got something to say, you say it to me. You're the one that said that this is a family. Now you're contradicting yourself. You're acting like a hypocrite." He hung up the phone. I let it go. We get to the gym. He sees me. But I noticed something, that he may not have liked me the way I stood up, but he respected me. And I'll take respect any day over just liking me. And what happened was, all of that, when people look at the fact, well, Mahmoud didn't stand for the national anthem. And all of that led to me not standing for the national anthem. Because you look at, look at the transition, the life that I was growing up in, seeing this relationship between the blacks and whites. feeling inadequate, having an inferiority complex, growing up with this mindset, having Tourette's syndrome, being ridiculed, thinking that you're dumb and you're not intelligent and things of this, and buying into the stories that people are telling you about yourselves. Then all of a sudden you realize, hold on, it doesn't have to be this way. You can control and dictate your fate. You can change the story. You can be the author of your story. You don't have to believe that. And so, alhamdulillah, what was I saying? That mental amnesia gets me sometimes. Who was listening? What did I just say?
You talked about talking with your general manager and then not standing for the anthem.
And the national anthem. And so, the more I began to read, I started to read about what's going on in the world. And it started to disturb me. And what happened was it was more like initially a private protest because I'm still trying to find my way. I'm still trying to understand how things are working. So I just can't stand. I just can't do it. Especially as a Muslim, we give our allegiance only to Allah. So I just can't. And so a reporter called Wind of It, assistant general manager, comes to me and he asks me, he said, well, hey, man, this reporter called Wind that you're not standing, you want to say anything? So I don't mind talking to anybody about what I believe. And that's how it hit the fan. And then they come to me, as the media always does, and they come to me and they ask me a question. They say, well, what do you think about America? I said, well, there's good in it, right? But I know, what do you think about it? I said, well, I think it's a symbol of tyranny and oppression. I said, but am I saying that everything in America is bad? No, there's good that exists, but where the bad is, even if it's in Saudi Arabia, as a Muslim, we don't stand for it. I thought that was a balanced statement. But they took that and they ran with it, tyranny and oppression, tyranny and oppression, tyranny and oppression. And they tried to assassinate my character and everything else. But it's only by, for me, when I look back at all of that, and I look at the transition that I took, and I look at the struggles that I've gone through, all of these things, there's a saying that when Allah wants to elevate you, when Allah wants to, when Allah wants to elevate you, He makes your life uncomfortable. Because it's through these, what's his name? Raheem Emanuel, I think the mayor of Chicago, when they were going through this global financial meltdown, he says, never let a good crisis go to waste. Because through crisis is when you end up doing things that you would have never have done. It pushes you beyond what you would have normally have done. So even with Tourette's syndrome, when I look back, I say, wow, thank you, Allah. Because if you would have asked me now, and I know I'm all over the place right now. I was going to follow my nose, but I said, forget it. If you would have asked me right now, if you had to live without Tourette's syndrome, would you? I would say no. Yes, it's hard. Yes, man, at times you feel like you want to give up. Yes, it's a headache to constantly, not being able to control your body. There were times I would throw my arm out so much it would feel like I was about to dislocate my elbow. I would hit the floor, and I could be hitting the floor, the floor like this playing basketball. My knuckles are hurting. It's painful, but it don't feel right. My mind and my body are not on the same page. So I'm still, and I gotta hit it with the same velocity. I can't lighten it up because I'm cheating. So all of this stuff, pushing myself, having to make those shots, even though I'm about to die. Literally, there were times I couldn't catch my breath. Tears would start coming out and I couldn't catch my breath because I would push myself that hard. I would literally, and I start crying. I said, please, God, I'm going to kill myself out here. Please, I'm working too hard. That's why some mornings when I wake up, I would have tears in my eyes. I'm like, I don't feel like going to do this. Because I know when I went outside, what Tourette's was going to have me to do. It was going to push me beyond where I myself would not have gone without it. So when I look back, I say, wow. As I get older, and even at that stage, I'm like, wow, this is a headache. I think I might end up killing myself out here. But I can see the benefits. Without this thing, I would not be the person I am today. I would not, because I was a little arrogant when I was about 9 years old. Because I was playing with older guys. And I was getting good. When I got with my age group, it was easy. So people run their mouth on the court, so you start talking trash. One day this older gentleman stopped me. He cursed me out so cold. It hurt my heart, but I didn't let him see it. And I needed that at that time. And I wish I knew him today, because I would go and I'd say thank you. He cursed me out. You ain't about nothing. I said, man, you don't know what you're talking about. Man, shut up, get out of my face. Now, I said that outwardly, but in my heart I was hurt. And when I walked off from that guy, I remember at that moment, as soon as I saw him walking off, I said, man, from this moment, I'm going to let my actions speak for me. I don't want to be known as that type of individual. I said, I'm going to be humble, because you can get more in life from being humble any day than you can get from being arrogant. But when I look at all of that pushing and all of what going through that abuse, today I wouldn't be probably, I don't know, Allahu Akbar. Maybe I wouldn't be as compassionate, as sensitive to other people's issues. Because Tourette's, it's not like something I can hide. It's overt, it's open. So I can't jank you about what you're going through. You got Tourette's, you can't sit still. So it teaches you humility, it teaches me to be sensitive. Plus, basketball. Mahmoud wanted to stop after an hour and a half. Tourette's wouldn't let me. He said, no. If you want to be great, you got to learn how to fail. You got to learn how to hurt. You got to learn how to go through pain. That's the only way you're going to get there. Just like that medal and anything else. You got to be able to go through that. And I think when I look back, I'm like, wow, thank you, Allah, for blessing me with this. Because without it, I wouldn't be who I am today. Without it, I probably wouldn't be the basketball player that I am today. Because everything was about trying to be perfect. Every single day trying to be perfect. And I think when we think about, sometimes we focus on the problem, like the adversity, and we don't think of the lessons that come from it, the beauty. Bruce Lee, there's a scene in Enter the Dragon, and this pupil comes to him to be taught a lesson. And when he comes to him, Bruce Lee says, kick me. And he kicks him. He said, what is this, an exhibition? He says, with emotional content. So let's do it again. So he kicks, but this time he kicks in a different way. He kicks with anger, he kicks with anger. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, you're using anger, not anger, emotional content. Now kick me, this time with meaning. So now he comes and he kicks a couple of times. Bruce moves out the way. He says, how does it feel? The student says, let me think. He slaps him. He says, don't think, feel. He said, it's like a finger pointing its way to the moon. And he saw the boy focusing on the finger. He says, don't focus on the finger, or you'll miss all the heavenly glory. So sometimes this is the way we are. We are so focused on what? I call it the fingertip vision. We're focused on what's in front of us. Oh, I'm going through this, I'm going through this. But we don't focus on, hold on. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He doesn't give you a burden you can't bear. If you think you can't bear it, it's just your perception. And my belief, He gives you what you think is more than another person. Maybe it's because He wants you to be that much greater. But there's lessons in it. And so the more I went through that, I understood, wow, thank you, Allah, for giving me this thing. Because through those adversities, through those hard times, Beethoven was a musical genius. But it wasn't until he went deaf that he had to improvise. And he cut off the legs of his piano so he could listen to the vibrations. That's when he produced his greatest work ever that he ever produced, after he had that setback or that challenge. So alhamdulillah, I'm going to end there. How many? 18 minutes? You want to open up to see if anybody has some questions or comments or yeah. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
Just could you tell us when did you start playing basketball? And also when did you what year did you press the stand?
I embraced Islam after my first year in the NBA. The summer after my first year. So I went to the NBA, high school in 1991. So, what was the other question?
And when did you stop playing the NBA?
Well, the NBA, I was kind of forced to quit after the flag, and then there was like a couple of years. I tried, I think, Turkey, and I lost the love for the game, and I was having a baby, and I came back, and then for whatever reason, I slipped through the cracks, and I was able to go to Vancouver, and I had a 2-year deal, but then 9/11 hit, and I got a history of not being able to keep my mouth shut. So Bernard Goldberg for HBO came to do an interview with me, and they had the second year on the option. And after the interview with what I said, they didn't renew the option for me to come back to the NBA. And so from there I went to play another 7 years overseas. And that's when I was in my prime of my playing years. So I continued to play over years till I was 41.
You continued playing overseas?
Yes, until I stopped at about 41 years old. Yes.
Which country?
I played in Russia, Greece, Italy, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Turkey. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Yes.
Brother Mahmoud, do you still have the trash bags full of the mail that you received? Do you still have it? And if you do, what?
You know what? I'm in the process of moving, and I thought about that about a month ago, and my heart fell to the ground. I don't even want to go look at my storage right now because I'm afraid I might not see it. But I think in the process of me throwing trash away, I may have thrown that away, and I hope not, but I had it possibly up until that point. But I will say that most of the mail that I received, actually the media gave the impression that I was, a troublemaker. They really tried to assassinate my character. And it was the furthest thing from the truth. Actually, the mail I received, I had some death threats, I had hate mail. But actually, most of the mail I received was in support. I mean, you had coming from Jewish people, from Christians, from Muslims, in support of what I did. I mean, they were breaking down the law, everything else. So it was a lot of support. But of course, they don't want people to know this, because they don't want other athletes, it's like what Noam Chomsky said, the threat of a good example. They don't want this type of thing to spread, to become the norm, where people begin to have a conscience. As long as you play basketball, you jumping up and down, you're okay. It's okay to dress in drag and have a second, third, fourth chain. It's okay to get into fights in bars, go to jail, be on rape charges, because a lot of athletes during my era were doing that. It's not okay to have a conscience, a social or political conscience. That's unacceptable. So you got to make an example. And this is, it got to the point where when I was playing, right after that incident, they traded me, and we were at our best. We were getting further and further in the playoffs. When I went to Sacramento, my minutes decreased drastically. Usually when I wouldn't play, like, Mahmoud, why aren't you playing? That whole year, not 5 people, journalists, interviewed me. Not 5. They wouldn't even bring it up. Tom Janovich for the Houston Rockets ended up telling someone that got back to my agent, he said, why aren't they playing him? He said, when we come to Sacramento, we structure our defense around when he's in the game. How we gonna guard them? So and they did a special on the best free throw shooters in the league. During that year, I'm still playing. And I was top. They showed everybody but me on television. That's when I knew, I said, this is obvious. They slowly trying to weed me out. And then that next year when I came, when my contract was up, even though they know you still have it, you're in your prime, they want to use, when they don't play you, they come back and they say, well, you didn't play much. we don't know what you can do, so they want to try to get you lowball you. That's when I ended up going to Turkey. I said, no, on principle, you can have it, I'm going to go overseas. And then I just lost the love for it. I just got tired of the politics. And if you're not careful, they'll try to do that to you. They'll try to take the love of the game away from you, the little things. I mean, you see it we talked about this today, they have so many different methods. And even when I was with Denver, even though I led the team in scoring my last 4 years in assists, every year except one, the whole time I was in Denver, they would find a reason to, when things weren't going well, they used me as a scapegoat. Well, we're gonna sit you to shake the team up. Whoever sits there leading scorer and assist guy when you're trying to shake the team up? I said, you think these people care about you? People are playing for a contract. But it was just an excuse. They would always, and I remember one time looking at Dan, I said, man, why is it always me? Yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous. But I understood it. Yes. What's
Can you talk about some of your experiences back during your playing days with brothers like Brother Hakeem, teammate Sharif Abdul-Rahim, and also any potential or negative backlash from your teammates or positive feedback from your teammates as well?
I was fortunate to play on the team with Tariq and Sharif Abdul-Rahim. You know, we had the chance to pray together, sometimes before and after games. With Hakeem, actually, I used to have a room too in Denver. I carved out for my salah before and after games, but they had a real nice place for Hakeem. But we would, when I would go play Houston, him and I would go into the room, we'd pray together before the games, and then after the games. And I remember one game, this was when I was new to Islam, we're always new, there's so much we can learn, but it was after the game in Denver, we were in the car together, and we were driving. I said, man, I need to get something to eat, because it was Ramadan. And I said, yeah, because I haven't eaten. He said, you fasted? I said, yeah, I fasted. I mean, that's all I knew when I came in to fast, because he didn't used to fast on game day. And he says, you fast? I said, yeah. I said, man, I tell you, I don't know what it is, but when I fast, I feel more focused, I got more energy. It's crazy. He said, well, if you fast, I'm gonna fast. So we both started fasting together. And then that year, it came out on CNN or something. They said, because before that, when I became a Muslim, told them I got to fast. They said, oh, no, you don't need to fast. I said, look, man, this is my belief. This is what I'm going to do. You stick to your training, I'm going to stick to what I believe in. But after the CNN report came out saying the Muslims' stats went up during Ramadan, it's like every year when it's Ramadan. You don't know when Ramadan was. But yeah, he was, by the grace and mercy of Allah, I helped influence him to do that. But very good brothers, man. I mean, very good brothers. And it's nice to have that network. I mean, really that's important, because the lifestyle in the NBA, just like anywhere else, I mean, there's a lot of leeches. There's a lot of temptations out there. It's constantly coming. I was fortunate because most everywhere I went, every city that I played in, I had a group of brothers that would visit me at the hotel. And they would come up, especially if we stayed over that night. And man, I'd order room service, and we'd be up to about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just talking about issues, just having a great time. And it got to the point where it disturbed the NBA, it disturbed the coaches, because when we were doing the book that we're still working on, trying to finalize, Dan Issel, the guy was interviewing Dan Issel, and he was like, you know what, when we used to go on the road, now he didn't say anything about guys smoking, guys messing around on their wives. He said, you know what, when we go on the road, and I just didn't understand. Mostly all the time, man, it'd be people dressed funny, come into Mahmoud's room, and they just be in there all night. Why should that matter? I mean, I'm coming, I'm prepared, I'm in shape, I'm doing my job. But that tells me, it's more than basketball. When they start thinking about things like that and what you're doing, but you're not causing the problem. But this helped to keep me grounded. the whole year. Because man, they are coming at you all the time. As soon as you step out, they give classes actually, a lot of people don't know this, they give us seminars. And they'll tell us all the little gimmicks and schemes that people are trying to run on athletes, to the point where, and I don't want to be too graphic, but they would take, this is one plot that people were doing for a while and getting athletes caught up. They would take a woman, because a lot of times athletes, when you're making money, your esteem goes out the roof because you got money, you feel good about yourself. You feel you look good and everything else. So you feel you can get anything you want. They'll put a woman, a beautiful woman, in a hotel lobby. You don't know that there's two other men on the outskirts that's with her, acting like they're not with her. She's there to entice you. As athletes, a lot of times, because not all of us, but you're confident. Hey, how you doing? Da, 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 da. They go talk to him. She's receptive. Make a long story short, they end up in the room. She'll throw something in his drink. He's out cold. She calls the two guys from downstairs. This is happening. Tells them to come up. When they come up, they strip him naked. The two guys get into the bed. They just pose pictures. The next morning he gets a call from a young lady, hey, come and meet me for breakfast. He comes down. Instead, he sees the two guys handing him an envelope. He sits down, he opens the envelope. He sees his picture in those compromising situations. He's married. He has children. It's $1 billion industry to throw basketball games, to bet on sports. They don't care if you're a bench rider or a star. We need these games. You got to make it happen. If you don't make it happen, we're going to send this to your wife. We're going to send this to most of them. They conform. They got all type of schemes they're running all the time. So it's good to have that network, because what did Prophet Yusuf, Salam, say? He said, when the woman enticed him, right? If you wouldn't have, you know better than me, if you wouldn't have protected me, I might have. This is a prophet, right? Imagine us. So I was blessed to have that group of people constantly reinforcing, what I believe in. I don't care who, young Muslims, whatever, always, you're stronger in numbers. You're always stronger in numbers. Always look for that support group. Yes? Was it different playing in a real game? No, not. I was blessed by Allah to get the best of it. But it's a different position. I think they have something on YouTube. People constantly, posting stuff, but we played them. I think they had an 18-game winning streak, and that's at a period when Jordan was trying to play a point guard position, guard the guard and play point guard. And he had just came back from Portland, being lit up by Stoudemire, went somewhere else and the guard lit him up. So he was coming to Denver, and I was like the third one. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to be the oddball. You know what I mean? So they started him off on me. And I think I ended up with he didn't stay on me long. They got him off of me because it's a different position. It's like me trying to guard Jordan on the block for the whole game. He's 6'6". Yeah, I'll be able to fight, but his weight over time, he weighs more, he's strong over time, it's gonna wear you down. We're used to running off picks, we're quick on our feet, right? When you run in that lane, that two guard, that two guard is here. But when you playing that guard, you can have a pick coming from behind, you gotta keep watching around, you gotta watch a whole lot more. So that wasn't his position. And then they abandoned that real quick throughout the year, let him play too. But no, it wasn't hard at all. When you get to that level, the thing that made a person like Michael Jordan and a lot of us who have scored a lot of points and was consistent with it, it's not that your skill level has something to do with it. But at that level, everybody's like similar in skill and speed in jumping. Michael Jordan wasn't the highest jumper in the league. He wasn't the best dribbler in the league. He wasn't the best shooter in the league. But what he did was he had enormous stamina and conditioning. And he did those things well enough to where if you and I were on the same skill level, you can shoot just as good, I can dribble just as good as you, all of that. But let's say it's the third quarter. You're tired, and I'm not. It's not that you're not as good as me. What happens with a lot of guys is that their conditioning failed them. So when your conditioning went down in the third quarter, and I still got energy, it looks like I'm that much better than you. Because, why? I'm still at that same speed throughout 4 quarters as opposed to 2 or 3 quarters. And that's why I tell people your conditioning has something to do with your focus. If you can work out longer and harder, you can focus longer and harder. The first thing to go when you get tired is what? The mental. You start forgetting plays. You start compromising on your technique. So if you can train to that point, like fighters when they fight a 12 round, they train for 15 rounds. Right? Because you still want to be able to. So that's what really made a person like Jordan and a Kobe and guys who, when we have been able to keep a scoring average up, and from that first jump ball until the last second of that quarter, that's what'll make the difference, take you from mediocre to a greater player. Yes, sir.
The time went back with the knowledge you had. What would you change in your life?
Ooh, those are always the toughest. I would have changed. Got a little mini book. You know what? There's a lot I would have changed. Me personally, before I answer that, it's hard to really say because we know everything happens for a reason. But now, I would have probably been smarter from the training aspect. I would have probably not practiced as long because now I know that it's not the quantity. And even though I practiced hard and I paid attention, but I probably would have been smarter with how I trained, so I could have utilized more time to concentrate on the intellectual side of me that I didn't develop, because I really suffered because I spent too much time in basketball, because that, to me, that was the moneymaker for me. It was like I didn't have confidence in my academic ability. I didn't fail out. I only made the grade. When they told me C is all you need to play, I wasn't trying to make an A. I just made enough because I felt, well, if I'm trying to make an A, I'm going to take time away from basketball. You know what I mean? And so I was trying to just do that, but that hurt me later on. It's like when I tell my children, I said, if you take the easy approach now, life becomes harder later. If you take the harder approach now, things become easier later. And for me, I took the easy approach with my work. So it became harder for me even now. I can't go back and make up for time I lost. It's gone. All I can do is focus on where I'm at now. So even now, just the ability, I'm constantly reading everything I can get my hands on. But it takes me longer because Tourette's is such that if I'm reading something and it doesn't roll off my lips right, I have to go over it again. Say if it rolls off my lips, but it don't roll off my mind right. It's got to roll off my lip and my mind right. But say I did those two and I didn't comprehend it. So not only has it got to go over my mind right, my lips right, but I got to comprehend. It may take me 10 minutes just to finish that paragraph. Now the good thing is that, okay, it took me long, but when I finish, I got it. I'm going to remember it. But I would change that so I could really, because now even though I'm older, it takes, and it was that way then because of Tourette's, but I would probably when I'm reading and studying, absorb it much easier now because all those years because everything is training. You condition yourself, you train yourself to get to that point. So I would probably be much more advanced now in that area than I am now. Boy, that's a lot of things. Yes.
How was it praying before and after games? Was it different? Did people try like asking you to like, why are you praying? You don't have to pray and all that, or?
Yeah, praying before games and after games, it wasn't difficult for me, but yes, you do have those issues. There was an incident because I started off in the closet, literally, and I come out the closet, and the locker room was here, and the coach would be on the blackboard, whatever, doing his thing, and I just come and I catch up to where he was. I knew the game plan. But when you're losing, they'll try to use stuff like that. And we got to a point where we lost a couple of few games. And I've been praying for the longest. And I remember after the game, Michael Evans, the assistant at the time, Dan Issel, came to me, he says, yeah, we got people, they coming in to talk late, and this and this and this. I knew he was referring to me. So after the game, Michael comes to me, he said, yeah, I got on authority. I got it on an Islamic authority that you don't have to pray before and after the game. I said, Mike, I said, if you want to know anything about Islam, don't go behind my back. Come and ask me. I said, can I delay my prayer? I said, yeah. I said, but for my knowledge, what Allah says in the Quran, He says if you feel threatened, you know the verse where I can't remember verbatim, but I gave him the A. And I looked around, I was being sarcastic. I said, as far as I know, we're not in a war zone. We're not in this type of situation. I said, so I'm going to continue to pray. I said, but next time you got something you want to know about my prayer, or know about Islam, come and ask me first. Don't go behind my back and then be watching me secretly to see if I'm a Muslim, if I'm practicing the way I should practice. And so he came the next day and apologized. He said, man, I apologize, you're right, But you have it. You have people, they're going to pick pride and stuff like that, fasting with prayer, all of that. Yes, sir.
This is the last question.
Okay.
So my question, I don't know if you talked about this before, but how did you end up choosing the name? How did you end up choosing the name?
I was in the back. When I became a Muslim, I went into the Imam's office. I chose my name by, actually, they chose it. Because I didn't know other than Muhammad Ali and other things. And I didn't know the meaning of these names. So I went into the masjid. The Imam was there, and there was another brother, I think, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. And one of them said, he says, I think Mahmoud is a good name. Sounds good to me. All of them have great meaning. And one of them says, Abdul-Rauf, I think is a good name for you. Okay. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Come to find out, one of them's name was Mahmoud and one of them's name was Abdul-Rauf. They wanted me to have a part of each one of their names. So I said, huh? And after I got their names and I started reading, I'm like, oh, I could have been Mujahid, I could have been, but the community knew me at that time as Mahmoud, so I might as well keep it. I apologize for my shortcomings, brothers. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. Yes?
Well, Mahmoud, what projects are you working on right now? I know the Blue Foundation is one.
Well, I mean, I've been doing a lot of work lately with the Blue Foundation, and actually I'm in the process of me and a couple of brothers in Mississippi. We're trying to do a couple of business ventures, but I'm doing a lot of professional basketball training, NBA players. Also, I'm in the process of trying to finalize the agreement between me and the author of the autobiography of my life. I'm looking to do another documentary as well, because 3030 has approached me, HBO has approached me, but I don't trust them, you know, so I want to do it myself and shop it around. So that's some of the things that I'm doing now. And I'm trying to write a book actually myself to motivate my children, because I never got I never got my degree. And I think knowledge is important, information is important. And sometimes we allow a degree or not having one to validate us or invalidate us. And I'm trying to tell them, look, you can do what you put your mind to, really, and do it. So I'm in the process of trying to write a book called The Monster in Me. But it's more like a children's version of growing up with Tourette syndrome. So I'm in the process of doing that, along with the autobiography. And then some people want me to write about my days at LSU, but more from the basketball side, the intimate details of living on campus, when you played against Allen Houston, when you played, because I don't talk about that in the book. It's more about my life and things of that nature. So, alhamdulillah. Again, I apologize for my shortcomings, though.
Thank you so much, Brother Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. And tomorrow from